Hey there. Thanks for watching. Today is week 4 of our series, Because He Lives, We Run. And today our message is Disciples Run with Recognition. This message is based in Luke chapter 24, verse 13 to 35. The big idea I want to share with you is this. When we recognize the risen Jesus, our direction changes. Scientists talk about something called inattentional blindness. This is the reason people sometimes miss something obvious that is right in front of them. In a famous experiment by psychologist Daniel Simons, participants watched a video of people passing a basketball and were asked to count the passes. In the middle of the video, a person in a gorilla suit walks directly through the scene, yet about half of the viewers never noticed it. They are looking, but they are not seeing. Human beings miss things all the time, even when they are close. Something similar happens in Luke chapter 24. The Emmaus story shows that resurrection faith is not merely believing an idea, it is recognizing a person who meets us on the road of ordinary life. Two disciples are walking away from Jerusalem, away from hope, away from community, away from the place where they believed God was working. They think the story is over. But while they walk, someone joins them on the road. They talk with him. They listen to him. They share their grief with him, and they don't recognize him. The risen Jesus is walking beside them, and they cannot see it. Many people today feel the same way. Life feels confusing, faith feels distant, God feels silent. But the Emmaus story reminds us that resurrection presence often comes quietly, walking beside us before we even realize it. First point I want to bring to you is this. Jesus walks with them unnoticed. Luke 24, verse 15-16 says, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. The first truth in the Emmaus story is deeply comforting. Jesus meets people on the road of disappointment. These disciples are not walking toward faith. They are walking away from it. They had believed Jesus was the Messiah, but the crucifixion shattered their expectation. Now they are heading home, discouraged and confused. And that's where Jesus meets them. Resurrection presence is often hidden. Jesus does not appear in lightning and trumpet. Instead, he walks quietly beside them and begins a conversation. He listens to their story before explaining his own. Augustine once wrote, God is closer to us than we are to ourselves. The disciples cannot recognize Jesus, but he is already present. Following Jesus begins with relationship before understanding. Jesus invites people into companionship first, and transformation unfolds over time. This is good news for anyone who feels uncertain or searching. You may not recognize Jesus yet, but that does not mean he's absent. Often, he's already walking beside you. That takes us to the second point of today's message. Their hearts burn. Verse 27 says, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they walk, Jesus begins to reinterpret the story through scripture. They believed the cross meant failure. Jesus shows them it was fulfillment. They believed suffering meant defeat. Jesus shows them that it was part of God's redemptive plan. Later, they say something remarkable. Verse 32. Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scripture to us? Scripture reframes their pain. John Wesley experienced something similar when he wrote about his conversion at Aldersgate. I felt my heart strangely warmed. Scripture does something powerful when Jesus opens it to us. It takes the fragments of our lives, our grief, confusion, longing, and places them inside a larger story. Michael Goheen describes the Bible as the narrative that reveals God's mission to restore the world. When we see our lives inside that story, suffering does not disappear, but it gains meaning. The disciples' circumstances have not changed, but their understanding begin to change. And when understanding changes, hope begins to return. The third point I want to bring to you is this: they return immediately. Luke 24:33 says, they got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. Recognition finally happens at the table. Jesus breaks the bread, and suddenly their eyes are opened. In that moment, everything shifts. They had walked 7 miles away from Jerusalem, 7 miles away from hope, 7 miles away from the community of disciples. Now they turn around. Same night, same road, 7 miles back. Recognition produces reorientation. Steve Addison notes that movements grow when ordinary people experience something so compelling that they cannot keep it to themselves. In movements that change the world, he explains that encounter leads to action. That's what happens here. The disciples who were living now become messengers. The road that carried despair now carries witness. When people recognize the risen Jesus, direction changes. Despair becomes hope. Isolation becomes community. Retreat becomes mission. Because recognition leads to reorientation. The Emmaus story asks a simple question to you and me. Is there a direction in your life that needs to change? Maybe you have been walking away from faith. Maybe you've been walking away from hope. Maybe disappointment convinced you the story was over. But what if Jesus has been walking beside you all along? Discipleship begins when people respond personally to Jesus' invitation to follow him. Recognition leads to response. Take a step toward faith. Go into the direction where Jesus is. The Emmaus disciples didn't wait until morning. The time to act is now. God bless you.